Hi, everyone, and welcome to Life at ADP, the podcast. Today is an extra special episode because I should say myself, Ingrid is on a top secret mission right now, but I'm joined by Amin Vanjara, who is our Chief Data Officer here at ADP. To have Amin be able to sit down with me today is a true honor, and I'm so excited for each of you to get to meet Amin as well. Amin, welcome to the podcast.
Well, thank you for having me. Glad to be here.
Awesome. So I know you, but our listeners may not know you. Do you mind sharing your journey about, when you came to ADP, why you came to ADP, and a little bit about your career journey here?
Sure. Happy to do that. The way I got to know ADP is the way I think many people get to know ADP is that I was paid by ADP in prior companies. And actually, there was an ADP office around the corner from where I live. And so I'd see it. And so I have some friends that work in the payroll industry. And I remember getting an outreach from ADP. And I actually sent that outreach to one of my friends, who works in the industry. And I said, this might be interesting for you. Why don't you take a look at it? And he's based in the Midwest. So he said, no, I'm not interested. Why don't you maybe, but you should give it a try. Great industry. I said, okay, great. Had a conversation with the folks here. And, I was really impressed by the way the leadership here thought about differentiation, disruption, what's happening in the industry. And it's difficult for a company that has been as successful as ADP has been. If you look at, there's a financial metric called TSR, total shareholder return. ADP is a phenomenal, has just phenomenal placement in terms of how it's performed on that financial metric. And so as I had known that just from my own kind of interest in markets and things like that, but then I wasn't sure what was happening inside the company. So as I got to meet some of the leaders, I was like, wow, this is a company that's performed incredibly well, that has leaders that have this very thoughtful approach. And there seems to be these new vectors of growth that sit at the company. And specifically, ADP has been phenomenal with payroll and then the broader human capital management. Think about HR, recruiting, benefits, time, retirement, the hire to inspire to retire life cycle. But then there's these vectors of where the future growth can come from. And one of those that I saw at that time was data. Right? I was like, wow, this company is sitting on nearly 20% of the US working population, right? Over 25 million people paid each month. Incredibly powerful data, a sticky relationship. And right now, at that time, I joined ADP about 9 years back. The way that the data was being harnessed was still, early. And so I was like, wow, that could be something really powerful. So for all those reasons, I entered within our enterprise segment, in kind of compliance, what we call compliance solutions, where we serve kind of some of the largest employers to ensure they have the right compliance around tax and payments, the ACA provisions and tax credits and others. And so I started there, but I always had my eye on the data. As kind of something to be powerful. And then in my next role, literally within about 2.5 years or so, I was able to find myself in a role leading the product management organization for our data platform, what we call Data Cloud. So that was kind of how I got started.
That's absolutely amazing. And thank you for sharing. So a couple of things that I picked up on is it's not lost on me that you are our Chief Data Officer, and the proof points in regards to why you joined ADP and even were interested in exploring ADP was very data driven. So that's not lost on me. But I also, something that we hear from so many candidates and people who join the organization is that one of the main reasons they join outside of the amazing leadership is the amount of data that we have. It's bar none. And because of so much data, there are complex challenges to solve and evolve towards the future of human capital management, which you shared. So thank you so much.
And maybe just building on that, when I think about, and I have this discussion with people internally at ADP, but also as I think, as I have conversations about how people can grow their careers, and even as I was approaching ADP, one of the best pieces of advice I got early in my career, actually it was during my college days, a professor told me, choose your professor, not the course. And I thought about that a lot, because oftentimes people are, trying to go after maybe like what's the latest like hot topic that you want to go after and work in a specific industry or on a specific area or these kinds of things. And that wisdom that my professor shared with me, he said, choose your professor, not the course, meaning it's the people that you're surrounded with that will make the biggest difference in how you experience a course, a work, anything. And by really understanding that, even if the topic area might be not what's something that you've known before, or maybe is super in the news, if the people are super, just really engaging, they bring out the best in you, doesn't matter what the topic is. It allows you to be your best. And that is what is so inspiring, and just makes you want to get up every day and go do it, whatever that is. And so that's something I've kind of built as a guiding principle for me, and found it to be helpful. And I think something I try to pass along as talk to other people about their careers too.
So I think that right now people have just leveraged that as their forward thinking guiding principle. So thank you for sharing that. Passing it forward. I love it. So let's talk a lot about Gen AI at ADP. I think people would be extremely surprised with the amount of work and focus that's happening at ADP within the Gen AI arena. So, what can you share with us about that?
So there's a lot of things happening here within the human capital management industry and ADP in particular, but let's start by actually taking a step back, because I think all of us have experienced in some way or another the impact that AI has had on our lives. And if you zoom out, AI has been around for quite some time. We can go back to the 1950s and see the papers that were written on neural networks that kind of originated a lot of this. And there were actually commercial applications that were happening. Even one that's really interesting is the algorithms used they're called Adeline and Madeline, came out of Stanford, I believe, were used to limit echoing on telephone landlines. And so they were able to kind of detect echoing signals and then minimize those so that you could actually have a better phone conversation. So just to make the point that AI has been in production at scale, having commercial applications for some time. Now, obviously, we had the AI winter and came out of that. And then we've seen AI, you've seen it in a lot of different ways. You've seen it, playing chess, against the grandmaster on Jeopardy, but also within your favorite streaming services and, around you as you're using, maps functionality and all kinds of stuff in our daily, consumer and technology life. When we think about what's happening specifically in the world of HR, the way we think about what products can do to help work life be better, we think about three broad principles, right? How do we make your work easy? How do we make it smart? How do we make it human? And that's like fundamental to how we think about our overall product strategy and what we're trying to do. Because if you think about somebody just coming to work, right? What we provide is a way to enrich that company and that worker's work experience. And there's some basic things you want to get done. When you're onboarding, you want to just, sign up for your benefits, make certain elections for when you want to get paid, how you want to get paid, adopt some policies, and you want it to be easy because you want to be done with it and you want to get on with your work. And there's many things like that. Maybe you just had a kid and you want to be able to follow that transaction and add them to your benefits. Great. You just want it to be easy. There's other things where you want it to be smart, right? You should know me. Like, give me proactive insights. If I'm leading a team and I lead a region and there's a number of stores that I support, I don't have to go look up every single store. Tell me what I should be looking at, right? Push to me the anomalies or the things that should catch my attention. So those insights are what I focus on, and then I can be more effective in my work, right? Turnover is jumping, overtime's, an issue. So I can then go speak with that specific store. Mm-hmm. But finally, when you think about human, we are in the business of human capital management, right? And there's this thing of data in our world. Every single data point is a human being. Sitting behind any data point is a person. Their particular life circumstance, there's the specifics of what makes them tick, what makes them love their work, loathe their work, what helps them to feel their best and feel like their strengths are being leveraged. All of those things, and we know this in our personal lives. Everybody is a unique combination of factors. And so the data that we're talking about here isn't coming from, machines or representing machines or signal processing or whatever. It's about how do you maximize the strengths of a human so that collective of humans can then, fulfill the purpose that they have, whatever that business is. It's, manufacturing some product, producing some software, providing services, running a hotel, running a restaurant, serving in a hospital, whatever those are, that's what we aim to do. And if that's our goal, if that's what we're trying to accomplish, how can AI help us do that better? And that's the fundamental question. Because too often we talk about AI, and AI, it's kind of the latest buzzword, but it's just a new capability to solve the existing problems we've always had, right? And maybe problems is too strong of a word. There's things that we want to enable to work better. We want work to be easier, smarter, more human. How can AI help us do that? And when I get asked this question and talk to CHROs, heads of HR, heads of payroll, heads of, that are leading recruiting in different organizations, the way I like to think about this is AI helps us create a culture of care in an organization. What do I mean by that? I mean that AI helps companies to harness the power of data to create a culture of care at the speed and scale of business. And let me kind of give you an example that kind of maybe make this more practical. So my mother-in-law lives in Chicago, and every few months she'll come visit us. And when she comes to visit us, she brings 2 bags. She brings small kind of little duffel bag and a big heavy suitcase. Okay. In the duffel bag, there's kind of some personal items, some things that she has for when she stays with us, and then this big heavy suitcase. And when she arrives, my kids and I, we all kind of come up and greet her, and my kids get super excited seeing their grandma, and they give her a hug, and then they make their way to the big heavy suitcase. Inside that is, what she's kind of prepared coming to our house, a whole array of home cooked food, right? A whole suitcase. Full of just, right? Full of just all kinds of stuff. You can just imagine all the different Tupperwares and everything. I always tell people, I don't understand, there must be some special level of airport security for grandmas, pre-check, global security, and then grandma, because what she's able to pass through is amazing. And so she does all that stuff and is able to cook and prepare and bake and everything. But here's the thing. She never once asks us what we want. She just knows. And she hits the mark all the time, right? Everybody loves what she cooks, right? And it's not always the same stuff, right? Maybe she'll make some more dinner stuff, some more sweets or whatever, and she'll choose those things and she'll just bring it, and she packs all of it. And that's that kind of special, grandma sense, that at least, I see, through her. But you think about this, anybody in their life will know that person who just knows them, right? There's somebody who just gets you, right? Maybe it's a parent, it's a friend, it's a spouse, or whoever that is. That person just gets you. Why can they do that? Why can they just know how to work with you? They know what you're feeling even before you know how to express it. They know what you're trying to say, even if you don't know how to say it. There's someone that you can sit in silence with and still have a conversation. Why is it that that person can have that kind of relationship with you? It's because that their algorithm of care has been trained on this data set that is you, right? They see all these different signals that come from so many repeated interactions of like how you operate when you're happy, how you operate when you're sad, when you're going out, when you were younger, as you got older, and they've seen this pattern of interactions and signals that you don't even know you're emitting. They pick up on all of that. And that's why they're able to be such a good friend, a spouse, a parent, a relative to you, because they've honed that algorithm of care to really tailor it to you. So this is what I mean by creating a culture of care. That is that capability. When you think about HR leaders at companies, all of this data is flowing through their HR systems about every single worker sitting in their organization. When they were hired, what jobs they're working on, who they report to, when they were paid, when they decided to take time off, benefits that they added, when they punched in and punched out, and the list goes on. And all of those things are recorded in a human capital management system. So all of those signals are kind of what we would call latent signals that are sitting within the system. The promise of AI is that it can unlock that capability, because that's hard for a human. Like again, on a small scale company, you can have those personal interactions with each individual and know what's going on because the company's small enough. But as it scales, there's so many people and so many different life stories that are happening and work stories that are happening. It's hard to keep track. And this is where systems can help provide the data that's allowing us to then be able to deliver that culture of care that makes HR easy, smart, and human. That's what we're trying to achieve.
I absolutely adore how you not just framed this, this being the Gen AI mission, the easy, smart human into the culture of care. It's so relatable, and thank you for sharing the story about your mother-in-law, because I was nodding my head, which I know you saw, but I'm sure many of our listeners were as well. We do have people like that in our lives that just know. But I really love the way that you've taken us from an organization that people probably know from their paycheck or their app where they now get their paycheck, to really much deeper than that. That culture of care, the organization, company, people behind it that are looking to build comfort and trust, to know what those things are happening in each of the data set, AKA human lives, that we are not only we have access to, but we have a lot of responsibility to, right? So thank
Absolutely.
you. I love that.
Absolutely. And so let's take some use cases to kind of help make this more practical. When we think about, the value that AI can provide to organizations and specifically with ADP strategy, we think about it in three big buckets. The first is how we can reimagine the product, right? And just create a fantastic product that we can deliver to companies, both the HR practitioners, the managers, the employees of that company, and make their work life better. Another pillar of this is how we can create a service experience, like for how we actually deliver on the questions that people send us, for how we can support them and make things easier within our own internal operations. And finally, we have a lot of ways and a lot of solutions that we can offer to companies. How can we grow our sales and allow our sales teams to be more effective, more targeted, and be able to engage with customers to things that are relevant to them? Those are kind of the three big areas we think about. Let's kind of focus on this kind of product one, the product that we provide to our end customers. I think all of us, when we think about a work experience, it would be great if wouldn't it be great if we could just kind of ask what we want to an HR system and get the answer back? Or even better, we could do that, but it could also just know me and proactively provide what I need at this moment because it knows what I'm going through, right? It knows that I haven't taken vacation in a long time. It prompts me to say, hey, look, you have this much PTO balance. It would be great if you could, you should think about how to use it. By the way, maybe even here are some offers that you could take advantage of so that you can have some ways to get discounts and use up that PTO time that's appropriate to you, right? That's the kind of experience that AI can bring. So when we think about the value of where we're going to go with the product, we've announced recently the notion of what we call ADP Assist, which is a product capability that we're going to be tying into all of our different platforms that we deliver, from the smallest businesses up to multinationals and internationally, that allows HR professionals, employees, executives, and managers to be able to really drive and have the process automation, the proactive insights, and the personalization they need to make their work life better. Let's take some examples to kind of make this real, right? So at a basic level, if I'm running payroll, right, there's a number of steps that I have to do in order to be able to do that as a payroll practitioner. And here's the thing, you cannot get payroll wrong, right? This is something that everybody expects, like 100% accuracy, right? And we all depend on this, right? We all depend on the check that we get to show up and to be right down to the cent. And so think about what that means for the person in your organization today who's responsible for that, or the team that's responsible for that. And there's so many different inputs that go into a payroll, right? How many hours did somebody work? What's the pay rate that they have? Was there any leave time that they had to take into account? New hires that joined, when did they start? All those kinds of things. And so all that data has to be put in. And then you have to think about the taxes that have to be taken out, any benefits or any deductions that are in there, and calculate all that, what we call gross to net, right? So what's the gross amount that you're paid? What are all those deductions that come out? And then what does it net out to? And with taking in all those compliance considerations, what's happening data at the company, there's a lot of data that's being put through. If you have to be right, because each individual family is depending on you to get that right, you want to make sure that you have the best capability to alert you when anomalies are detected or errors are showing up. So as an example, you might have a company, one capability that we're actually piloting with clients today is, imagine you have a company that's operating, let's say in South Carolina. I'm just going to pick that, like a state in the US, right? So you've got South Carolina, you're operating there. You recently hired people and expanded into North Carolina. Well, guess what? In order to do that, there's tax implications of setting up in a new state. You actually have to have a tax ID that's set there. Now, if as a system, it would be smart if that system would notice that you have people that you hired that work in North Carolina, but you do not have a tax ID in input into the system for North Carolina, and that's going to lead to errors in your employer taxes, right? And so it'd be great if the system proactively alerted me to that, let me know that I have to do this process. Maybe I don't know because I'm expanding newly into a new state. What do I have to do in order to be able to get that tax ID? And how do I input it into the system to make that happen? That's something now that ADP Assist is currently doing for our clients, right? Enabling them to think about some of those compliance things they might not know they have to take advantage, that they have to account for, and be there proactively and help them complete the whole journey to get that done. Let's take another example. I want to, if I imagine I'm a manager of like a certain region of stores, right? And so it's really important. Like I imagine I'm set of restaurants. It's really, really important to run a restaurant that people come to, that I have workers that are there, from the waiters to the front of house staff to the cooks to everybody. And it's really, really important that we're staffed up, we're scheduled right, and we can run our operations. Now, I can't be at every store at once. And so it would be great is if I start to see some new hire turnover jumping, meaning when people who just joined us and they stay with us for a little bit and then they leave, that to me indicates that, there's an issue with what we're doing in terms of bringing people into the organization or keeping them when we're there, right? Maybe we're not bringing in the right people. Maybe we're not doing enough to keep them there. Something's going on. I would love it if my HR system would proactively tell me that so I can then know, this is something I should be focused on. And so that's another thing that we're working on, and we have today in ADP Assist. We're piloting this with clients so they can get proactive notifications from their analytics to say, hey, your turnover jumped or your new hire turnover jumped in this specific location. Here's what you should be doing about it. And guess what? When somebody leaves, they're already gone, right? They made that decision. They decided to leave. But there are people at your company that are still there today. So you want to make sure you're doing everything you can to understand how are they feeling, right? What's going on? How do I ensure that we're creating the best process for you to feel engaged, right? To feel like you are having, a valuable experience at work. So we actually have also the ability to deliver surveys. So the ADP Assist is actually now embedding the survey process. So you can actually deliver up a survey to the specific people that are in that location and are still there. So you can get a sense of how they're feeling about what's happening. And now you have these data points. Well, I know people have left. I have sentiment of the people that are around. What kinds of conversations and what do we need to do to put in place to be able to take action and ensure that we're helping that restaurant to be able to grow and make our people feel engaged and productive at work.
And something about that too, when you use an example such as the restaurant, the people that leave, although they've left employment, you also want them to consider still being a client. So you still want them to think fondly of where they were working, to bring their family or their friends and or to refer people to go to that establishment. So seeking those data points will not only help the attrition, but will also continue to grow revenue numbers when you think about it, because it's not going to prohibit people from referring people to go back to that establishment.
That's right. That's right. It's so critical, right, to make all this happen. And, just another piece of this whole hiring puzzle is kind of salary benchmarking, right? Recently, we've actually we've put a lot of work over the last, 7 to 8 years on a salary benchmarking capability that takes data from that's sitting in the payroll systems. And we're able to think about all these 25 million people that are getting paid. We know precisely what everybody's getting paid. So our ability to be able to compute a salary benchmark gives you kind of accurate data of what somebody makes in a particular job, in a particular location, at a particular time, right? And we've seen changes of that. Think back to the COVID era. I know it's actually not that long ago, just 4 years ago. Think about what that was looking like for COVID and all the different changes we saw and the disruptions. Having access to accurate salary benchmarks is so important for employers to make sure they get the right talent at the right price, in the right locations, and to know what's going to be. We actually recently published an article. We had some researchers from Harvard and University of California at Berkeley. We published it in Harvard Business Review, showing the impact of what salary benchmarks could drive before you're using kind of AI-generated salary benchmarks and what it can be afterwards. And you can see like a 2x difference in setting the right salary, reduction of overpays of salary, and just an ability to be able to be more effective in your hiring practices. This is the kind of impact that real data can have to drive value for organizations.
Thank you so much for sharing those use cases. They were absolutely, they absolutely resonated with me, but I'm curious too, if we can just shift to your overall and the team's overall approach to data. So can you share a little bit about that?
I think it's important now when you think about from a technical perspective, like what are we doing to make these use cases possible, right? And how do we actually build the platforms that we can do this at scale? So we think about this in a few different pieces. The first is obviously the underlying data platform. We have put in a lot of work over the last decade plus to be able to build all of our data flowing into a central data lake that we have housed. We have that data catalog. We have the lineage around it. We have anomaly detection on that data. We have structured data, and now we're bringing unstructured data into that platform. So there is a common foundation that everybody can use, and we have developed the permissions around that data, done all the contracting work. So just all the foundations you need in order to actually be able to do the data and AI work that needs to happen has been, decade-long investment, that has happened across the company. And so from that foundation, which again covers over 40 million people that we pay across the globe, right? Over 1 million different companies that we serve, that's a tremendous data set to pull from, right? But it's not just the data that comes from those companies, kind of the specifics there, but also because of our business model, the way ADP is set up, we actually have a very deep service organization. So we interact with our clients in a very deep way. We understand how they're using our systems. We're not just a SaaS company. We are technology and service. That's core to our value proposition. So much so that we have a division of our company that actually which is kind of BPO, or business process outsourcing, but we're actually be the HR or payroll arm for companies that want that level of support from us. So the point being is, especially from a data perspective and a technology perspective, the insight we have into how the data is being used, and then the conversations from customer chats and transcripts is very rich. So now you can combine the structured data that's sitting there about what somebody's paid or what somebody's clicking on in the system with the transcript data and the chat data about how people are talking about what's going on. And GenAI allows us to unlock that, to now be able to power an experience where more of that can be done via that kind of chat type of interface, like an assist, the ADP Assist that I talked about, that can both serve our customers, our service teams, and our sales teams. So that's kind of the data foundation, right? Then we have kind of an AI platform that sits on top of that, where we have common AI services, right, that can be leveraged off of that data. So think about things like a summarization service. You have things like a nudging service, anomaly detection, kind of common AI services that can be used across teams so that it can accelerate the work that they're doing, right, to drive end value for customers. And critical to that is kind of like a human in the loop type of feedback, right, that's happening. And again, one of the things that I think our business model allows us to do is, because we have that data set, we both have a way of being able to have, expert labelers, so that we can get the data, the test sets, to actually be able to validate the outputs of the models, but also to be able to then do the fine tuning of the models to be able to ensure we can do fit for purpose in the way that we're delivering value, but also to be able to leverage that data to be able to use things like LLM as judge, right? So that you don't have to now start to build out and always rely on kind of a human you can have the human in the loop experience, but be able to train the models to be able to actually serve that purpose and accelerate the way that we do that validation process and the completion of the validation loop with whatever we produce. So you kind of start to think about all of those different capabilities. And then fundamental to all of this is kind of a responsible AI approach, right? Because it's really, really critical that we establish the right principles, guiding principles of how the data is going to be used, how AI is going to be used, and have the right processes in place to be able to make that part of our culture, and also the right tooling to do that at scale. So all of those pieces, we've set up an internal and external AI ethics board that reviews all of our cases and use cases that we go through. and provides guidance. We have an internal process that goes through the use cases to ensure that we're doing this in a compliant, ethical manner, but also to see synergies between different teams, and then the right kinds of tooling to ensure that we can monitor how data is flowing, which models it's being used with and for, and ensure that we have an appropriate set of safeguards for safe, private, accurate, and secure use of our data in the AI processes.
What I appreciate that you've hit upon within the group principles and the approach to data that your overall team takes is you have also unknowingly yet probably very strategically have hit upon some of our just overall core values at ADP. So, results driven is one of them. Integrity is everything. That's a clear indicator of the ethics in which you were just referencing. Service driven, service excellence. So I really appreciate and respect the work that you and your entire team are doing around this effort, as well as, the evolution of the products. It's extremely inspiring. I love absolutely hearing, all the work that the team is doing, and I appreciate you sharing that with all of our listeners. Amin, I have no doubt that people are like, okay, so I'm blown away by the work they are doing. How can I join this team? What does it look like? What can I expect? What candidate profile and traits? Can we talk a little bit about what you look for people to join, the data teams and the Gen AI team at ADP?
Yeah, absolutely. So look, as you can tell, there's a lot of work going on, and through that, we're looking for talent, for people to help us grow and help us grow in a number of different ways. So really, within our group, we do four big things. We have the central data platform, the central AI platform, the data and AI governance, and the commercialization capabilities, where we kind of run the business of how we commercialize data. And that scope has a lot of different talents that we need. We obviously need data engineers who are going to be able to help us, build the right pipelines, ensure we have the right monitoring, ensure we have the right capabilities within the overall data platform. So that's fundamental, and we have a lot of open roles there. On the AI side, from data scientists, for helping us to be able to do the actual modeling, working both in the kind of traditional AI and Gen AI space, to AI architects, to machine learning engineers that can actually help us to productionalize and ensure that we can deliver the capabilities we have at scale. So all of those are important roles that we need to be able to grow out. But also within data and AI and governance, we need people who are experts in security and privacy and be able to know how to run governance processes to ensure we have the ethical and responsible use of our data, right? And so we have a team that's developing and growing there. And then finally, like a set of, you think about growing the commercial side of actually developing the products, right? So we have, the full stack of applications, we actually then have from product management, application developers, who are both UI and then backend, to be able to have UX designers to be able to come in and help us build our analytics product, build some of our API products, help us to be able to develop and grow, and folks that can help us, think about the strategy and market approach to how we want to get there. So there's a ton of these, opportunities that we have. Data is a growing space. I'd encourage any of the listeners here to visit tech.adp.com. Look at things around data solutions and all the kinds of different roles that we have posted from any of those categories. And really what we're looking for is folks that are customer obsessed. They love to move at like a startup type speed because we are kind of an innovating group within a larger organization. We have the resources and we have the kind of strategic alignment to be able to move. And we're looking for people who are excited about creating an impact and making a difference, and really thinking about outcomes, not activity, to drive customer value. So if that sounds exciting to you, we'd love to have that conversation.
Thank you so much, Amin. I have no doubt that within the next few weeks, you may see a little bit of a spike happening with the open roles that you have. But we so appreciate you taking the time to sit down and speak with me. Again, Ingrid, she's here in spirit. And, for those of you who are intrigued about a career ADP, specifically a tech career ADP, as Amin said, please visit tech.adp.com and, search for the Gen AI, data engineers, data scientists, AI architects, security, product development. We have so much to offer here, and it has just been a real treat to sit down with you. So thank you so very much.
Thank you so much.